podcast. I like your show.
How did I get here? Welcome to the Shipe Sports Show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Shipe Sports Talk Show. We are coming to you all live from YouTube, Skype, as Paul is doing some construction to his studio basement, I guess is what we can say, Paul? Paul?
Yeah, kind of.
All right, joined always by my co-host and producer, as you heard, Paul.
Yes, sir.
Joined also on Skype by Chris Cordova.
What's going on? And it's his bat cave, by the way, not his studio. It's his bat cave.
And always, my OT3 co-host and special guest tonight, Anthony, is joining us. Anthony, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, so we have a pretty good show lineup today. First, we're always going to do our fantasy segment. We're going to do a stardom sit-em. And then this week, me and Chris, Anthony, I should have told you about this. We're going to do our top 3 waiver wire pickup. Obviously, we're doing it this week because of all the injuries that just happened in the NFL this past week, too. It looked like one of mine and Anthony's Madden leagues with all the injuries that were happening.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
Then afterwards, we're going to preview Redskins versus Giants since Anthony is here. Our avid Giant fan, our expertise. So we're going to break down that game. Also, the return of Odell versus Norman, part 2, I guess is what we could say. And in the end, maybe we'll get in some little baseball. You know, it's great to have Anthony always on the show. You know, he can talk some Mets as they make their postseason push for the wild card. I believe they're in first place now. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So maybe we'll talk about that for the last bit of the segment if Anthony doesn't mind getting into that a little bit.
No, never get into it. Don't try and set me up, though, for something with your Nationals. All right.
What is baseball?
Oh, oh yeah! Congratulations to Chris. I believe you're winning. You won the fantasy league, didn't you?
I haven't won. It's the championship week.
But it's a pretty good chance you're gonna win.
Well, I started at like negative points for the first day, so we'll never.
It would really be an
see.
upset if you lost. You've only lost.
Hey, man, stop doing this. You're just jinxing him. Stop. Just
He's
stop
lost
while you're ahead.
once the entire season.
That's what happened last year, I think.
It only takes one game, man.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into our fantasy segment. You know, our stardom sit-em. We're gonna start. You know, we'll pick quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end. The one you three would, or us three would start. The one we would sit him. Quick 10-second explanation. So we'll go quarterbacks. Chris, let's go with you first.
Quarterbacks. This week, I'm gonna start Carson Palmer against the Bills. If we saw what Ryan Fitzpatrick did against the Bills this past week, I mean, I think Carson Palmer's a pretty easy start, especially with him coming back week 2 and showing everyone week 1 was a little bit of a fluke. To sit, surprisingly, I'm going to say Kirk Cousins. He may get some garbage time, you know, fantasy points and stuff like that, but if you look at our last 8 games against the Giants, we're 1-7. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. All right, Anthony, your QB start sit him.
My stardom, I actually was agreeing with Carson Palmer, so I'm kind of scurrying here quick to kind of get someone else.
How about
That's
a sit him
okay.
real quick while you look for
sit him. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer for the sit him this week. You're playing against a Texan defense on a short week. This guy didn't have much time to practice. I think Jacoby Brissett should be nowhere near even a waiver wire pickup, nor be in the starting lineup this Thursday for the game.
Totally agree.
If I had to go with a starter, I don't know, man. There's something about I like the Titans matchup against the Raiders. I like
that one.
I like Mariota's chance. Me personally, I think Carson Palmer is the best matchup, but I think Mariota is another good matchup against the Raiders defense. I think that you know, with what they've been building over there and how he's been playing, I know you were probably excited over there, but that throw he made to win the game to Andre Johnson between 2 defenders. Not many people make that play, period. Catch, throw, anything like that. And I think he's going to come into his own. And I think that against Oakland, that could be a game, you know, that he could really show up in.
He had a real good game against them in the preseason when they were doing their number ones against each other. I think it was the third preseason game, so it was a pretty good dress rehearsal for him.
So, yeah, to go opposite and not stick with the Palmer, I will go with Mariota and Jacoby Brissett for the sit.
All right, my stardom, I'm going to go with I was looking at who the Colts were playing, and their defense, you know, has not been the best against passing, especially against tight ends. And one of the better tight ends is on the Chargers, Antonio Gates. So I'm going to go with Philip Rivers as my quarterback. I know he's missing, you know, Keenan Allen, but I feel like, you know, the Colts defense against tight ends have just been god-awful. So I'm going to go with Gates as quarterback, and I'm going to go with Rivers. And my sit-em this week, I'm going to go with Jameis Winston. You know, I just had who he's playing. Now I'm going to shoot myself in the foot. He's going against L.A. And the Rams, their defense has been very, you know, except for the first week last week, they shut down a really, I think, a good, Russell Wilson, to some people, is a top 5 quarterback in certain cases. And I just think Winston struggled last week, and I think the struggles can continue this week, especially against that pass rush.
Yeah.
So let's go with running backs. And Anthony, I'll let you take it first for running backs.
Running backs, for stardom, I'm going to go with someone that I actually had a big run last week in his game against the Ravens, and I think Isaiah Crowell will have a big game again this Sunday.
Yeah.
And for my sit-him, it's going to be a guy that was touted as he was a top 5 pick along, every team, no matter where you were drafting, even if you went receiver first. But Todd Gurley, I think, should be sat against the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are not letting, in the run, I think it was saying they're averaging it's under 80 yards. I think it's like 75 and change that they've let so far up the season on an average. I know it's only on a 2-game pool, but the Buccaneers' run defense has been pretty good. So, and it's not like, last week they played David Johnson, so they've had already, off the top of my head, I could think of at least a decent running back that's been there. So I'd say Gurley to be the sit for this week.
All right. Chris, we'll go with you next.
Well, I think to start, I'm going to have to go with D'Angelo Williams. I mean, I think he is the number 1 running back in the league right now in terms of rushing yards. Philly's defense has actually stepped up the past 2 weeks, and I think that's a really good reason why, or really one of the main reasons they're 2-0 right now. But I think D'Angelo Williams and that Steelers offense is just too much for anyone. So I think D'Angelo Williams is a pretty sure bet to be an RB1 this week. In terms of a sit, I'm going to have to go with I also had Todd Gurley, but I'm actually going to go with Carlos Hyde. I don't really trust the San Francisco offense that much, especially against the Seahawks team. I mean, this is probably going to be another 9-6 game or something really low scoring where I don't think very many teams or very many players are going to get touchdowns. So,
all right. Good picks. My stardom, I'm actually going to go with, one of the leaders in PPR for fantasy because of all the receptions he's been getting lately is going to be DeMarco Murray. He, especially against Oakland, Oakland's defense a little bit shaky, I think, even with the pass and the run. And DeMarco's been lighting it up, not only he had a 67-yard last week, but I think in the passing game, and he's doing pretty well, I think, for players in fantasy, especially last week. I think he racked up over 22 points because of PPR, especially in that final drive. And my sit-in this week, I'm going to go with LaShawn McCoy against that Arizona defense. I just think Arizona's defense is way too strong right now, and I think McCoy, 0-2 Buffalo, I think they're going to be struggling. The way the offense for Arizona's been going, I think they're going to have to pass more, which are going to take McCoy out of his game. So that's my start and sit-in for running backs.
This whole Gurley thing that's everybody's sitting is really depressing for me.
How do you think I feel? He was a first-round pick in my money league.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
he is too in mine.
Now, I think it may just be him going against, some of the top defenses in the league right off the bat. That could be an issue. I know during his draft strategy, I should have thought about the division he was in with the Cardinals and Seahawks. Didn't really think about that till now. So that's where we go with wide receivers. I guess I'll start it since you guys started the last two. And I'm going to go with Odell Beckham Jr. The Redskins' pass defense, I'm sorry, man, it just has not been there. Antonio Brown lit him up. Des Bryant had a quiet first week, had a good second week. So I'm going to have to go with Odell. And I'll tell you what, if they're going to do the Norman on one side of the field and Breeland's been getting punished, why not just put Odell on the side where Breeland's going to be at the entire game? Until the Redskins start putting Norman following the top receiver, just keep your top receivers away from him and just keep on letting Breeland get shot. And my sit-in this week is going to be Torrey Smith from the San Francisco 49ers. We talked about as Chris said with Carlos Hyde, he's going to be going up against Richard Sherman, the Legion of Boom, and I just don't like that matchup for Torrey Smith. So, Chris, let's go with you for your wide receivers.
For wide receivers this week, I'm going to actually go for stardom. I'm going to do Travis Benjamin. I think he's a really good sleeper this week in terms of daily fantasy. With Keenan Allen out, with Danny Woodhead out for the season now, I think they got to really start leaning on their depth at the wide receiver position. So I think Phillip Rivers is going to have a good game against the Colts this week. In terms of sit-em, I'm going to go with kind of a weird play here. Basically, any New England wide receiver, either Julian Edelman or Amendola, they actually had a pretty good game this past week. But like Anthony was saying, this is kind of a short week against a pretty stout Texans defense. I'm not sure how Jacoby Brissett is going to do against them. So I'm going to go with Julian Edelman / Amendola.
All right, Anthony, yours?
For receiver, I actually have. I was between two people, but I ended up going with Philip Dorsett. I think that Andrew Luck is going to have a big game against the Chargers. You really haven't seen anything like that's been like, I don't know what's going on with the Colts starting off 0-2. They've been decent on offense, but I think he really might have a breakout game. Another guy I like is your boy on Tennessee, Tajay Sharp. I think he might have a decent game as well. But for the sit-em, I think that people should not buy into the hype with Marquise Goodwin. I don't think that he's going to have that big of a game. I know
Well, he only had two. It was only 2 catches, and
but I'm saying, yeah, he had one that was like 80-plus yards. That's another receiver I like a lot because Revis does not seem right. I like Jeremy Maclin this week, but my number one I had on my list was Dorsett. But I'll say Dorsett and Marquise Goodwin or even Sammy Watkins. I don't think Watkins is healthy either to be playing either of those Bills receivers.
Speaking of receivers, we just had a question from one of our fans, Graham Harton. He just asked Devontae Parker this week or Victor Cruz.
What's
Anthony,
the
let's go with
matchups?
you since Cruz is on there.
Obviously, Cruz is on the against Redskins, but who is Devontae Parker playing?
Let's see who Miami's playing.
Because I know I'm trying to think about that.
Miami is playing Cleveland. Now, you got to remember, he's going against... well, no, he probably won't. No, Hayden will probably be all over Landry, so you got to think about that.
Is this for our league that he's asking? Because if he's playing against me, I'm not giving free advice like that.
I don't know if he's playing against you.
That's a tough one for me, man. With the emergence of Sterling Shepard, I think he's been getting the most, to me, I think he's been getting the most looks on the offense, and I think it's because he's been playing in the slot. I like Devontae Parker more, to me. I just think that Devontae Parker will get more looks against the Cleveland defense because, like you said, Hayden's there, but he'll be lined up against Landry. So I like Devontae Parker over Cruz just because I feel like with Shepard and, like you said, Odell, I feel like Odell's going to get a lot of looks. The last 2 times that the Giants have played the Redskins past season, he went for like 70 yards and a touchdown in one game and like 124 yards in the second game. So I think Beckham is going to have a big game, and I really don't like any other receiver in that game.
I'm actually going to go with Victor Cruz, only because what I saw what Colt Beasley did as a slot receiver against the Redskins this past week, and Beasley lit it up pretty good. So I think you have Shepard and Sterling Shepard and Odell on the outside, like you had Terrence Williams and Dez, and then the inside receiver Beasley got a lot of reps. I'm going to go with Cruz this weekend.
The one thing to keep in mind there, though, too, is that Cole Beasley is the most targeted receiver Dax Prescott goes after.
True, that is very true. But
I'm
going to go with the slot guy here.
And I'm going to agree with both of you. I mean, I think both of these easily could be a play. Devontae Parker against the Browns defense it's almost like a no-brainer. You kind of have to play anyone who plays the Browns. But I think this could be a high-scoring game for the Giants offense. I mean, it's kind of almost a complete turnaround. Well, let me not say a complete turnaround because that game against the Saints, that first half, I don't think anyone scored a touchdown, if I remember correctly, or it was really late into the first half when the first touchdown happened. So I think the Giants offense is definitely on the upward trend. But I kind of like Victor Cruz and Devontae Parker. But if I had to choose one, I probably would choose Victor Cruz.
Okay. All right, so let's go last off. Let's go with tight end, and Anthony, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys just got this update either. I just got an update.
About Garoppolo?
Yeah, they're basically saying that the Patriots are pressuring him to be ready for Thursday night, that Brady played with a similar injury before like this. So he should be ready to go Thursday.
They want to start 3-0.
Hey, I'm just saying, with an injury like that if it's a Sunday and it wasn't that serious, but you're talking about 4 days. So if this is any
here's our thinking. Push him to start, try to get the win. And then, if you lose next week, you're 3-1. Here comes Tom back.
You're 2-2, man. With Tom Brady, you have to like your chances. 0-4, you still got to think you got a shot. I mean,
they go
talking about the Patriots
table to go 12-4.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think he could run the table. So that's what I'm. But for tight ends, I have Delaney Walker on Tennessee.
Yep.
And for a sit-em, I have Dwayne Allen, the tight end on the Colts.
Okay.
I haven't really seen much. I thought with Fleener leaving that it would officially make him the number one guy, but I remember you saw the emergence of Doyle get more touches, more receptions in that first week and actually score a touchdown. And Dwayne Allen continues to seem to be like non-existent to me as a primary player on that tight end front.
All right. I guess I'll go second. Chris will save you for last. I'm gonna go with Larry Donnell because the last 2 times he's played the Redskins, he's torched them. I can't look up the stats, but I'm pretty sure he's put up some really good numbers against the Skins. And my sit-em, you're going to surprise me, is going to be Greg Olson.
Really?
I feel that only because Kelvin Benjamin is starting to come into his own there. I think he's looking to be Cam Newton's number one target. And Minnesota's done pretty good against tight ends this year. Walker got held to, I think, only maybe like 1 or 2 catches in week 1. Rodgers couldn't find anything in the passing game last week. So I really think Olsen is a sketchy play this week, even being a top 3 tight end in the league. I just like that defense from Minnesota. Chris?
So for me, I'm going to go with Antonio Gates. You mentioned this earlier when you were picking your quarterback to start. I really think Antonio Gates is that veteran presence that you can just lean on. When there's injuries, when there's people maybe not getting separation, you can always just throw it up. Antonio Gates will get the separation and get the touchdown. We're talking red zone looks. In terms of sit this week, I actually just had it. Hold on. My bad, because I was gonna go with Dwayne Allen too, but you know what? It's gonna be tough because I think if Greg Olsen comes back this week, I think you got to sit Martellus Bennett. Also, because we're not sure exactly what the quarterback
You mean if
situation is
Rob
gonna be.
Gronkowski comes back?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
You said Greg Olsen.
Gronkowski comes back because I'm looking at Greg Olsen right now. So if Gronkowski comes back, then I think Martellus Bennett is going to take a seat back, and he probably won't put up the numbers that he put up this past week.
All right. So real quick, we're gonna go through our top 3 waiver wires, just the top ones that we have. I'll go first. I have Dak Prescott as my number 1. I think he's played pretty good, pretty conservative the first 2 weeks of the season. I feel like against the Bears, we saw what Carson Wentz just did. I feel like Prescott could be a really good play this week if you need a quick quarterback, someone who maybe has. For myself, I have Tyron Taylor, and my backup's Brady. I need someone probably this week with him playing Arizona. Number 2, I have Charles Sims from Tampa Bay. Doug Martin possibly being out. Sims is a really good backup there, maybe a good PPR. And then I have Whitaker from. I just said that wrong, didn't I?
No, you
Fozzie
got it
Whitaker.
right.
All right,
You were correct.
yeah. I have him from Carolina because they're saying Stewart is 1 to 2 weeks, and when he came in last week, he had a really good day. So I'm gonna go with Whitaker, Sims, and Dak Prescott. Chris?
Well, I'm going to go with pretty much the obvious pick here. I believe that Adrian Peterson is going to miss at least a game, right? So if he's
They're
going to
saying he's trying to go.
I know this guy is an absolute beast, and if anyone is going to come back from this in 1 week, it's going to be this
He
guy.
had a torn ACL, came back and ran for 2,000.
That's what I'm saying. This guy is a beast, but if he misses time, and I think you kind of have to just, you kind of have to roll with this. I think you're going to have to pick up Jared McKinnon this week. I think he's going to be the number 1. What are you smiling back there for?
Nothing. Go.
I like that. I like McKinnon, actually.
Jared McKinnon, I think, is going to be the number 1 targeted free agent this week. My second pick is actually going to be someone who's maybe wasn't drafted in your league, Tevin Coleman. He actually was probably drafted in several leagues, but there's definitely some leagues where he is out there right now on the waiver wires. And if you looked at this past week, it's pretty much been a 50-50 split. I think there was a difference of 3 touches between Coleman and Freeman, and Coleman is the one who's actually been more productive and got the touchdown this past week. So if you want to stash somebody and maybe Coleman may end up taking the starting job from Freeman and later on in the season. So I'm going to go with Coleman. And as a wide receiver, if this guy is still out there, you got to make sure you go get him, and that's Will Fuller. He was available in a lot of 10. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, we had a pretty big league, I think. It was a 12-team league.
In the 10-man league, I drafted him.
Well, there's definitely plenty of 10-team leagues where he's out there. Maybe even 12-team leagues where he's still out there. This guy's a beast. I think he ran a 4.40. And if you just get this guy the ball, he's going to take it in the end zone. And he's an awesome compliment, DeAndre Hopkins. So you got to pick him up this week if he's still available. What was that?
I think he just muted us.
I did.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Anthony, you got any waiver wires?
I like McKinnon a lot. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Matt. I like Jerick McKinnon. I agree with that pick a lot. I think that he's a solid running. I know that they are going to do like the split where he gets like majority, but Asiata gets a lot of the goal line touches.
Yeah.
I still think McKinnon will, could possibly be a 100-yard rusher in his first start if he gets the shot because he has that explosive big play ability. I also agree. I like Tevin Coleman a lot. I actually drafted him in a few leagues with the stash capability, thinking that when he's healthy that he should be the starter. I know Freeman had, a good season last year, and that was why he kind of unseated him when Coleman went down, but I like that. I'm not huge on the Prescott waiver wire pickup. I do think he'll do good, but I don't see his potential being as great.
He still has
I'll agree
zero
with
touchdowns.
those two. Yeah.
I mean, how do you?
He
How
has
do you
one rushing touchdown. Yeah.
Well, but
that's what I'm saying. He doesn't have any. I knew what you meant. Yeah.
I think he gets his first one this week.
All right.
But
one. Just one? Is that worth?
I said his first
the
one.
wire?
I didn't mean he's going to probably get more than one, but I feel like his first one's going to come this week.
All right.
He'll probably have his best game of the year this week.
He's been efficient. I mean, he's definitely been efficient, but I'm not sure if I'd start him as a QB1 right now.
All right. Well, that's our fantasy focus for the week. We'll have that every week we're on air. So we'll do the waiver wire, something new we're doing this year, so we'll keep on doing that. So let's move on to what we really came here for, and it's Skins versus Giants. And first, I want to ask you all something real quick in terms of Jay Gruden and Kirk Cousins. So obviously, we all know about First Take. We know how Stephen A. how he feels about certain issues. He brought up a race issue this week with Jay Gruden, Kirk Cousins, and also RG3. Probably something I don't know if we should talk about on the show, but just something I want to discuss. What do you all think about that for him to bring up those allegations about racism with Jay Gruden, RG3, and Kirk Cousins?
Well, why don't you enlighten me, Matt? Because I'm not sure I heard that story yet.
Yeah,
he came out. He pretty much said that Jay Gruden is handling the situation very differently from what he did with RG3. If this was RG3 struggling the first two games, he would have been crucified. He crucified RG3 really quick in DC, but it seems like he's taking his time with Kirk Cousins. So that's pretty much that came out saying that he treated RG3 different from Kirk Cousins. So, Chris, as a Skins fan, do you feel that Stephen A. has a point there?
I think he's got a point, but I don't really think it has anything to do with race. So let me first get that right off the bat. I think it has to do with the fact that Jay Gruden, even though he was hired to coach up and essentially make RG3 the number one guy, I think in the back of Jay Gruden's head, he didn't want RG3.
Well, same thing for Shanahan.
But that's what I'm saying is the way that he handled it was because he just didn't want him. And Kirk Cousins, they want Kirk Cousins. Let me rephrase that. Jay Gruden wants Kirk Cousins to stay, and he wants him to be their guy. So I can see where he's got a point there, but I don't think race has anything to do with it.
Anthony?
Maybe Gruden is a genius.
Anthony, yeah, maybe Anthony, from someone coming from the outside, looking at it not as a Skins fan, what do you think about this?
Here's the thing, man. I've told people this from the beginning. I'll agree right off the bat. I wouldn't involve race in this situation whatsoever. I don't think that has anything to do with it. RG3 was mishandled the first season he was on that team. When he got injured at the end of the season, he should have been shut down. They saw what they had in him. They should have been like, hey, let's hold off and see what happens next year. He was in his first season. There was no reason to rush him back, and then he further injured himself. Now, I think he never came back as that same. I think he might have lost confidence, whatever it was in the offseason. Whatever, he just didn't seem the same when he came back the second season back from the injury. I don't think it had anything to do with that. I do agree to your point. I think Gruden just didn't want him to be the guy there. But I don't think it was anything like that, You hear stuff about this like RG3 got ran out of town and this and that, but you never really hear him bring up anything about it, and he has like no sour grapes towards the Redskins. He kind of just moved on and he was like, all right, give me another shot somewhere else. That was it. So I think RG3 handled it with class, and he did exactly what he had to do, but I also don't understand why people in the locker room, I hear they're saying rumblings about, hey, we want Colt McCoy as a quarterback. That's a horrible idea. That's a horrible idea to even think that McCoy would do better. Cousins is having a rough start. You got to stick with him. If in week 4, week 5, they're still got no wins, yeah, maybe you think about making a move. But he's 0-2. They've been close in the game. I mean, the Steelers game, yeah, it was more Steelers than it was them. But the Redskins were right there against the Cowboys. There was one. They made a couple of wrong moves. There was one play I remember they made in the fourth quarter that kind of, cost them the game. Cousins looked a little rattled there on that 4th and 1. He threw the ball behind him, and that was that. But I think there's a play here or there, and the Redskins are 1-1 right now, easy.
Well, let's go to that last game real quick. Just touch on that. Cousins' stat line is threw for 365, 1 TD, 1 interception. Offense scores 23 points. can you really put all that blame on him? Or if you score 23 points, I feel like 9 times out of 10, you should win a football game. But let's go back to the red zone TD. They let that happen. Then you just let the Giants drive right down the field on them. The Cowboys. I don't know how many third down conversions the Giants. I keep saying that because I'm looking at his jerseys. The Cowboys made, especially the 4th and 1. But here's the thing: the Cowboys. How many times did the Cowboys run a bootleg that game? And the Redskins, and I believe this is true. What's his name? Ricky Van Swan. How do you say his last name? Ricky Van Swan, something like that. Defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
Jean Francois.
There you go, Gene Van Swan. Yeah. So he said the Redskins don't make halftime adjustments, and I think that's true. You can see that other teams make the adjustments. If this team's running bootleg nonstop, why didn't they make any adjustments? So I think not only maybe you can put maybe 20, 30, 40% on Kurt, but I think this is more on the defense. You scored 23 points, you should win a football game. I mean, Chris, what did you think about that?
Well, I do believe that now just looking at the box score real quick, did you know that we dropped back 50 times that game? I think that's just crazy. I don't think I like our passing offense. I think we have a great passing offense, but we don't win a game by dropping back 50 times.
But this comes from during the preseason when our run attack sucked. That's where it comes from.
It's not going to get any better if you don't keep running the ball.
Well, Jones had a good game, and they didn't stay with the run.
But that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of the blame does have to go, I think, towards the play calling, because if Kirk Cousins doesn't throw for 50 times, I mean that's crazy in my opinion. How do you throw 50 times unless you're down, 40-0? I think you still have to have a more balanced attack in order to win these games.
I also think they need to start putting Norman on the number one guy, because let's go back to week 1. Put him twice on Brown. Brown didn't catch anything. Put him twice on Dez. Dez didn't catch anything either of those times. So this game against the Giants, if they don't put Norman on Breland, because let's all face it, even Anthony can agree, the last time these two played, Norman got inside Odell's head, and I think he still is inside Odell's head. You put him on Odell right from the beginning, you could throw Odell's whole game right off the bat. Anthony, can you agree with something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Odell showed a lot of, like I've said time and time again when I've talked about this with you and with the people, he showed a lot of immaturity in that game, and, Norman exploited it. I don't agree with, either of them acting like that, but that's what you have to do. If you can get inside someone's head to the point where they're not focusing on the game of football, which is what they're there to do and get paid to do, then you're doing something right. And that's what Norman did. It didn't matter if Odell was, better than him. It didn't matter if Norman was better. Norman got in his head, and Odell was a non-factor in that game because of that.
You know who is great at getting inside people's heads? And I can't believe I'm going to mention him. Cortland Finnegan.
I knew you were going to say it, too.
Time and time again, how many times did Andre Johnson...
Andre Johnson, punched his helmet off his head to the point. And, Andre Johnson, you didn't see that much from him when he would exploit like that. But a corner, that's part of the game. They say this game is so physical, but it's just as much mental as it is physical. If you have that kind of edge on somebody, that's what I'm saying. You don't have Cortland Finnegan. You're a Titans fan. He's not near. If you talk about caliber of players, he was not in the same caliber at cornerback as Andre Johnson as a receiver. But he knew exactly what to do to get him off his game and got Andre Johnson taken out of the game for it.
And I think if the Redskins want to win this game this Sunday, you gotta put Norman on Odell and see where it goes, because Breland, he's getting torched by number ones. You keep Breland on Odell, and that stardom wide receiver I picked in Odell Beckham is going to get at least 100 yards and probably 2 touchdowns. So, that's the first key. I think we transition to the game this week. That's the first key you got to do, is put Norman on Odell one-on-one.
But
Chris,
will they?
That's
going to be the big thing. And I think it's going to come down to what you're saying is.
Hold on, Chris. Chris, I don't want to cut you off, but I think Paul was going to say something real quick.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Quick question.
Yeah,
Paul?
no, I was just going to say, do you think Breland is pretty much faced, at least the last 2 games in the top 5 wide receivers in the league?
Yes, but here's the problem with Breland is the first year he was in the league, he shut down Des Bryant. He got a lot of hype for that. But these first 2 games, I don't know if he's playing scared or what, but they're also, when you look at the setup of these cornerbacks, they're playing 5-7 yards off. There is no bump and run from the Redskins, and that's what's, Dez is the kind of guy who's going to go right by you. You got to put some pressure on him right away, throw him off, because Dez, let's all face it, he's a softie. I'm sure Chris, Anthony, we all can agree. Dez sometimes can be a little softy and a crybaby. Antonio Brown, you give him 5 or 7 yards off, he's going to cut across the middle because that's what he does. He has speed. He's a great route runner, and that's what they did to him. So Odell, from what Chris is saying, you got to either play him up or you just got to put Norman on him and hope Norman just gets right into his ear. So, Chris, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I don't think off the bat they're going to have Norman shadow Odell. And I think it's going to come down to, like you said, adjustments in the game. If Breeland gets torched by Odell Beckham, do they have the balls to basically say, all right, then, let's do it. Let's have Norman shadow Odell Beckham, and let's see what he can do. But I think we're going to start off just like we normally have. Josh Norman is going to stay on his side of the field, and Breeland is going to stay on his, and we're going to see how it goes. And unfortunately, I think we're going to get torched if that's the case.
All right. Let's go to the top cornerbacks in the league who makes the most money. Norman, Peterson, like Hayden and all of them. When Peterson plays against a team, Revis? Let's go with let's take Norman out of the equation. Let's go with Peterson, Revis, and Joe Hayden. Probably, arguably, you can throw Richard Sherman in there, but those three are arguably one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the league. When they go against other teams, do they ever line up on one side, or are they right after? They're right after the number one every time.
Sherman usually stays on the same side.
You don't pay someone I don't know, what did they give Norman, $75 million to just play on one side of the field. You paid someone that kind of money to take out someone else's number one. So, Anthony, from your point of view as a Giants fan, obviously, if you're Odell, you want to see Breeland, but, what do you feel about the Norman Odell, and if they go at it once again, are we going to see the same results we did last year?
No, absolutely not. You're not going to see that again. And I think that the more, the media and ESPN, all those, the Fox, all these outlets talk about it, the more they're going to bring them. I think they need to go out there and they're going to line Odell opposite of him to start the game. I don't think that McAdoo and I don't think that Gruden are going to even want that to be something that starts the game. So I think that from, the Giants' perspective, if he's going to stay on his side, the Giants should automatically line Beckham on the opposite side to start the game. There's no reason you need to start the game with fireworks like that. It's already a heated enough rivalry between the two teams. There's no point in trying to start the game off with the two of them going at it. And I don't think it's going to be like that either. Now, I do think they are going to match up against each other. But if I'm Josh Norman, the reason you say, hey, you know what, I'm on this side, I know you say, he goes against the best receiver, you automatically put the safety over top of Beckham every time on the other side for Breeland. Every time. Norman can handle one-on-one coverage. So leave Norman on that side against Shepard or Cruz, and then you put the safety over top of Breeland to protect on Beckham. That's the best way to play it. If he wants to play opposite, and then what's going to happen, they'll be like, he's going to keep getting double covered, move him to the right, then you get Norman versus Beckham. That's how they have to play it if they're going to try and prevent him from having another big game. But I don't think Norman needs to follow his every move. I don't think that needs to happen.
Okay. Now, as a Giants fan, would you rather see the Breeland-Odell matchup? Because you probably think you could exploit that really easily?
Absolutely. But that's what I'm saying. Me being, thinking about this as just a sports fan, you have to put a safety over top. You saw, like you said, Antonio Brown exploited Breeland. Antonio Brown, to me, I love Odell Beckham. I'm a Giants fan. Antonio Brown, to me, is the number one receiver in the NFL.
Oh, so, we all can agree with that.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm a realistic fan. I love the Giants, but I like Brown over Beckham. Now, not saying I think Beckham's awesome. I'm glad to have him on a team. But you saw what Antonio Brown did. Beckham's capable of that same kind of, movement and same kind of catches that Brown is. So you have to put someone over top to protect him. That's it. That's all there is to it.
All right. Now, talking about the Giants offense real quick. Anthony, is there anything that concerns you about this offense coming from week 2 when you played against, a really, I guess you can say, not up to par Saints defense that Oakland just a week ago put up 30 points? Are you concerned at all with your offense going into week 3, especially, after, I guess, the performance you put on last week against the Saints? Do you feel like you should have put up more against the Saints?
Yeah, listen, I don't know if you got a chance to watch the game. A lot of drop passes, a lot of turnovers, fumbles. There was right off the bat, the first drive the Giants had, they were inside the 5. First and goal, I think, from the 3 or the 4. And
3 fumbles lost. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, I know 3 fumbles lost, but I'm saying on the first, they go for it first and goal. He throws it. They run the ball. Third down, he throws the ball to Larry Donnell, a fade route, one-on-one coverage. Coverage was decent. Donnell drops the ball. I'm sorry, second down. Third down, he goes to Beckham. Beckham drops the ball. So now 4th and goal, nothing really transpires. They turn it over on the 3. So that's one right off the bat. They miss an opportunity. Then they go back later in the game. Vereen fumbles the ball. They lose the ball. They were inside the red zone. Victor Cruz, the next drive, catches the ball at like on their side of the field, runs it about 40 yards, gets caught from behind, and fumbles the ball inside the 20. These are plays you can't be making. If they do this against the Redskins, and if it wasn't for the Giants' defense being as good as they are, and I'm shocked how great they're playing right now, obviously, like I said, there wasn't, you asked me, are they going to be better? There wasn't really any other way possible they weren't going to be better because they were awful last year. But they made these moves, and it's paying off. You see the defense. I mean, the Saints' offense is no joke usually. So, they held them to 13 points. That's what you want to do. But if they make these same mistakes against the Redskins, I think that the Redskins will exploit that. The Giants' running game has not been there, but Eli Manning's throwing for 350 yards and no touchdowns. You can't be having a quarterback be throwing for over 300 yards and not have a single touchdown.
It's almost like, Kirk just with the one touchdown and one interception, it's almost same type, almost game line last week, except Kirk just had the one extra stats if you look at it.
Yeah, you have to get to the point where you're throwing touchdowns. You can't be doing this, garbage where Eli's, taking your team all the way down the field doing 70-plus yard drives and we're ending in field goals. That's not going to win you a game against a division rivalry. If they go in with that game plan and they put up 16 points, they're going to lose that game against the Washington Redskins. So I don't want to see that, and I don't want to see the ball on the floor so much from guys like Shane Vereen and Victor Cruz. Now, Victor Cruz ended up making the game-winning play by making that catch when Eli threw that ball and he wrestled it away from the corner. There was kind of like a jump ball almost when Odell dropped a wide open pass when he had the coverage beat the play before, and it would have been a touchdown. So there's got to be better plays made by the offense, but defensively right now there's no complaints on the defensive side. They're the reason why they're in these games right now and they're able to win these low-scoring games.
Real quick, to Graham and Darren in the chat, we will get to your questions right after this segment is done, so please stay with us in the Facebook chat. We appreciate you being there. You know what, Anthony, what I think about the Giants this year is, let's go to last year. Those two games, they would have probably lost last year. So the money they spent on defense was definitely well worth it. I'm very impressed, and I think it's going to be a physical game. And I really think this is going to come down to Eli and Kirk Cousins on who makes the least amount of mistakes. I feel like this has the potential to be a high-scoring game, to be honest with you, I really believe, because I feel like, the Redskins' defense has been so-and-so to where they're going to have to fight back with some passes. So I think it's going to come down to Kirk Cousins again. Chris, what do you think about that?
Well, I have a question for Anthony because what I noticed was that Vereen actually out-touched Jennings this past week. I was going to ask you, what do you think if that was just part of the game plan? Was that just the way the game was flowing? What do you think about that? And how do you think that Giants running game is going to be against our stout defense?
Here's the thing with the Giants. They've had this issue now for years. They just can't stick to one guy. They never, they're like, oh, Jennings the workhorse. And in the first game, he was already other people were getting just, you know what I mean? They're like 2-3 carries behind him. I understand, when the running game's not there, it's not there, but you have to just one game, even if there's give the guy 20 carries. And if he gets 40 yards on 20 carries, then yeah, the next game switch. Jennings hasn't really been that, explosive, either. And I heard he has a cast, they're saying, I think on his hand or something.
Oh, really?
So I don't know if that's going to mean he's not playing. Yeah, he has a cast on his left hand and wrist, but he expects to have it removed by Wednesday, they're saying. Yeah. But I don't really know what their thing is. I think Vereen but Vereen fumbled the ball. I think out of the backfield receiving wise, you go with Vereen easy. But I just think the Giants, they really have no idea what they're doing with the running back position. I think they don't. That's why I was really hoping they were going to draft Elliott, because I think it would have, secured all of their, reasons. Even they would have had no doubts about. Yeah, I mean, Henry too, but that's what I'm saying. They just need someone. They need to just say, they're like, oh, well, Jennings is the guy. But like Chris just said, now Vereen looks like he's getting more touches. And they're saying to look at him in fantasy, to be the guy. So I really don't know what that. The receivers are really solid. So I think that's why they're kind of just keep rotating. But I think Jennings should still be the guy. And then, again, if he has, a game where he just does absolutely poor, then you're like, all right, Vereen gets majority. But enough of this split carrying, you're never going to see what one guy can do until you give him that load, that workhorse load.
Well, I think this week could be that week. I mean, the Redskins' run defense is just really not good. So if Jennings is going to have a breakout game or have a game that's going to really get him going this season, I think this will be it. I mean, we let D'Angelo Williams run all over us. We let Ezekiel Elliott run all over us. I mean, I think if Jennings is going to have a game, it's this week.
All right, so let's go ahead and go to this. Anthony, you first. The Giants win If
They don't turn the ball over.
all right,
That's
Chris.
it's pretty easy.
Yep, Chris. The Redskins win if.
The Redskins win if we have a more balanced attack on offense, I think.
All right, Nick DiCarlo in the chat just said disagree with what we said about Jennings. The Redskins are going to stop him.
Well, let's hope. I hope I'm wrong.
Let's hope. I mean, during the preseason, they were stopping running backs. So I mean, where is that defense?
Well,
That defense was shutting down everyone.
We did face two pretty darn good running backs in the first 2 weeks, so I can see why we're getting torched. But I think this will be the test. I mean, Jennings, I don't think is an all-out top 10 running back, but if he can run all over, yeah, I mean, he might not even be top 20. If he can run on us, then we obviously know that there's a problem.
Best part about Anthony saying not top 20 was he was the one when we were doing the fantasy football show mentioned, hey guys, don't forget about Rashard Jennings.
Yeah,
Hey.
I had to do that to my giant guy, but he's not a top 20 running back, man. He's a filler pick.
I personally
you
think
guys-
the Redskins win if they shut down the Giants passing game, and they're going to have to eventually move. Actually, if they make halftime adjustments, that's how the Redskins are going to win the game. Because they're getting torched in the first half and they don't do anything, they're going to get torched in the second half. So I think it's going to come down to adjustments.
All right.
All right, so
you don't think that you guys? We haven't really talked anything about Kirk Cousins' play. Like, you don't think it was anything out of the ordinary for him playing the way he
real
did?
quick before we get to that question, I have someone in the chat saying, sorry, Paul, we'll get to right to that in a minute. Nick
It's okay.
also said our defense has been good enough to win us the past 2 games. The offense needs to pick it up. I agree, yes and no in that, because I think we'll segue into what Paul just said about Kirk Cousins. Last week, yeah, he messed up in the red zone, the 1 interception, Pierre triple coverage. But I feel like Kirk's been playing, the first week, but I think last week he played good enough for us to win, and I think it's our defense.
Well, even with like there was where he would drop back into the pocket, and when they were playing a lot of men out down the field, and there was only like 3-man rush, he would rush the play when he didn't have to. He had plenty.
He
of
doesn't
time
look
to
comfortable.
actually, like, stuff. Yeah. He's not
Like-
making these right decisions. That I was listening to a radio station earlier today, and they had a guest on who was saying something that sounded about right. That he wasn't processing information as it was coming in quick enough, or at all, and sometimes sometimes he just made some plays that you're just like, what's going on? Especially that one that the interception down in the end zone. He knew that someone was going to be. He knew that there was probably going to be a safety or somebody going to be coming on the other side, and he just didn't even think about it. He didn't look over to the right side at all.
For some reason, people are bringing this up. They're saying it's not his factor, but for some reason, I feel like this being a contract year for Kirk, I still feel like that's affecting him mentally because I feel like there's pressure. Like, okay, I'm on a 1-year deal. If I want to make that money, I got to do good, and maybe he's trying to force things to try to make the plays. Chris, what do you think about that?
Well, I also was listening to the radio this morning. Well, actually, I think it was this afternoon, and I kind of heard a lot of comparisons of Kirk Cousins and Patrick Ramsey. Kirk Cousins
Jeez, haven't heard that in a while.
Exactly, and Rex Grossman, and who was the other one? Derek Anderson. Had great years for maybe a year, and then all of a sudden that was we figured them out to be flukes. Those were outlier years where they did great, they were efficient, and then defenses figured them out or they regressed. But I really don't think Kurt is really playing bad. I think a lot of it has to do with our defense really not stepping up when they need to. I think we're getting eaten alive in the run game, and also that allows the other team to really control the game. But I definitely don't feel comfortable being married to Kirk Cousins for the next 5 years. As of right now, I don't feel comfortable giving him a 5-year deal for $20 million a year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think if for me, my answer to your question, Matt, if you're saying what it would take for the Redskins to win, what do you got back there? Would just be that Kirk Cousins. I think it lays on Kirk Cousins' hands. He just needs to snap out of this kind of like I don't know
Sorry.
what it is, and just release and play football like he did last season, man. He was fantastic last season. If he just kind of settles down, gets more comfortable, and he can actually make these process that information that's coming at him at 1,000,000 miles an hour like he did last year, it's just gonna make it that much easier, that much more comfortable for the defense to play well.
Yeah. Yes, Nick, that was the wife in the chat. So, all right, we've talked about everything. We've talked about how they should win, the defense. Let's go ahead and do our picks. Anthony, final score winner and final score if you want to pick it.
Well, real quick, I want to ask you. You talked about Kirk Cousins, but what do you think Matt Jones' role in this game? Because if you remember the last matchup they had, Alfred Morris toted the ball about 20 plus times. Obviously, he's not there. The first matchup, Jones had 11 carries for 38 yards. He wasn't as big in the second game. They gave the ball more to Morris. Do you think that maybe Alfred Morris could be a big reason the Redskins win this game on Sunday? Chris or Paul?
Well, I think Matt Jones definitely has to get involved more. Like I was saying, I think we definitely need a more balanced attack. So I think, like you said, 11. I think this past week, I think he had 13 carries. I could definitely see him getting 15 to 18 touches this game. I think he will be a big factor. I hope that we can run the ball more, so that way we can take the ball out of Kirk Cousins' hands, having not dropped back 50 times.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I think Matt Jones needs to start stepping up and taking over for the run game.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
change
do
it up to play calling, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
and
after them
halftime
trying
adjustments.
that one little fade, that fade pass that they were trying to do 3, 4, 5 times in a row. It wasn't 5 times, but it felt like it. Make some adjustments. Don't sit there.
Well,
and
you haven't
try
seen
to
Josh
drive a nail in when you're not
Dotson
going to be
all
able to do it.
game. He
He
comes
was trying,
in.
all game they were trying to get him.
What do you think
involved.
that's going to happen? They're going to run the fade route to him, and it didn't work. I mean, if anyone could throw up a flag and be like, hey, they're going to throw me the ball. I'm coming in the game for a red zone. Cowboys knew what was going to happen. You see him in there. He's probably the biggest red zone threat they're going to have in the next coming years. Okay, cool. Let's just put a safety over top and a quarterback, and he ain't going to get it.
I know that we drafted this guy in the first round, and
He's
I know
not ready. He missed
that's
all
what I'm saying.
season.
I know
There's no reason to play him.
this may be pressure from up top. They maybe just want to see their draft pick, actually produce. But I think you're right. I think he missed all of the offseason pretty much. He hasn't had practice. There's no chemistry. Although pretty much a lob is a lob. But I think he needs more time to really get that practice and get the chemistry going.
Yep. All right, so here we go. Let's do the pick right now. Anthony, who you got winning?
I got the Giants winning the game. I think that, like Chris already said, the Redskins have to come with a more balanced attack. I just think Cousins' woes that he's been having, or whatever, I think it's going to continue because I think the Giants' secondary and their defense in total has been playing really well. You want a final score, or you just want me saying the Giants
We'll
are
just
winning?
go with who wins. So you got the Giants.
I got the Giants winning.
Chris?
My heart is telling me the Redskins are going to win. My brain is telling me something different. But I'm going to go with my heart this week. I'm going to say the Redskins find a way to win this week finally. Come out 1-2. Our season is not over yet. So I have a little bit of hope and say that we're going to win this.
All right. Paul, we'll go with you. Who do you want?
I think that
Oh,
it
we
is
lost
a must
Anthony.
win
I'm still
for
here.
the Redskins. Yeah, his video was kind of choppy. It was
It was
weird
behind, so that's
listening to him
yeah.
talk. Yeah, he wasn't.
So that's
his
why I
mouth
did
wasn't
that.
moving. I think it's a must-win for the Redskins. They have to kind of snap out of this. They have to figure it out, and that's what I'm going to go with the Redskins because they have to pull through.
All right. I'm gonna go with the Giants. I just think the Redskins' pass defense and their defense in general has not been that great. And I feel like if they don't move Norman around, the Giants are going to exploit that definitely with their better depth at receiving core, especially with Shepard, Cruz, Donnell, Odell. So I'm going to go with the Giants on this one.
All right.
All right. So real quick before we go off the air, we have 2 questions we want to go over. First one, Darren Thompson. He won my DraftKings challenge this past week, so congrats to Darren. He
Nice
wants
job,
to know
Darren.
for DraftKings. even though he's probably doing the league
Congratulations.
against me and Chris. He wants to know what's a good flex option for DraftKings. So real quick, Anthony, Chris, just give one quick flex.
Flex option, like any running back or receiver?
Yeah, just someone, in terms of value, like, maybe someone under the radar that could be a good option.
Tajay Sharp.
All right, Chris?
I think for me, because DraftKings is a PPR league where you get a full point, I think you got to go with Cole Beasley. I mean, he's been killing it in terms of the targets because being a slot man, he's just getting those 4 or 5 yard plays and picking up receptions left and right. So I think Cole Beasley, for his value, I think you're definitely going to get good returns on that investment.
All right. I'm going to go with, I actually have one with 2 tight ends. So my starting tight end is Walker. My flex option is going to be another tight end, and it's actually going to be Larry Donnell. To be honest with you, I'm going to go with the tight end flex. A lot of people don't normally do that, but I just think he's going to put up big numbers because I go with history, and he has a very good history of doing against the Redskins. I think Chris can remember last year during the fantasy, I picked him up just for one game. It was against the Redskins.
You did.
And I won because of that week. He got me, I think, over 30-something points.
Yeah,
I went with him just for 1 week because of what he did the last time, and it won me the week. So I'm going to go with Larry Donnell.
And I think based off of the past couple weeks.
Where's he at? Go ahead, Chris. Why?
I was just going to say, based off his production the past couple weeks, he's not going to really be highly owned. So.
And here you go. For DraftKings, if you want Larry Donnell, $2,700, one of the lowest tight ends out there.
Really cheap. Yeah. And,
because
like
I got him, I was able to afford David Johnson as another running back. So, I mean, that goes to show you. So, the next question before we head out, we'll cover this quick minute or so. Graham just wants to know, what do we think about, real quick, he's a Ravens fan, Ravens versus Jacksonville. So, let's just go who we think is going to come at the outcome of that game. So, Anthony, if you got to pick between Ravens and Jacksonville, who do you like?
I don't know, man. Like, I really had high hopes for the Jaguars, being
well, we
seeing
both
how
did.
they
I mean, we
ended.
talked about both, I believe.
Obviously you're happy because that's your division.
Yeah.
But I really thought the Jaguars could be the surprise team. I thought that division was going to be more open. I thought the Texans, would probably be at the head of the pack, but I thought the Jaguars had a chance of being right around there at that 8-8 mark, 9-7 maybe, and maybe getting a chance at a wild card if it's around that. But I don't like what I'm seeing. They're not involving Hearns enough. I haven't really seen Bortles looks like he's having a tougher time. Yeldon's had a chance to really, take off as number 1 with Ivory not being in there. If Ivory comes back, I think that would be a huge, shot to the arm to have maybe a 2-headed running back system. But I still think the Jaguars are going to find a way to win. I actually think Hearns is going to have a big game for the Jaguars this week. I think he's going to have finally have that game that people have been waiting for when they drafted, Hearns and Robinson so high, and some people drafted both of them for their same fantasy team.
Like that guy right over there.
Yeah, but
not working so far.
So yeah, I think the Jaguars will win that game. I think it'll be a close game though.
Yeah, I'm really confused after last week. I mean, I really thought the Jacksonville offense was going to be able to move the ball against the San Diego Chargers, but they just stunk. I have no idea what happened in that game. And, a lot of people were really high on Blake Bortles this year. But based off the statistics, I think 75% of his touchdowns last year came in garbage time. And we had all talked about how the Jaguars defense was supposed to be a little bit better this year, so that way they didn't have to throw the ball so many times.
Yeah, it was my sleeper pick.
Yeah, right. I still think the Ravens are going to find a way to win. I'm not really high on the Ravens defense, but I think that offense is really starting to click, at least the passing offense. Mike Wallace has really injected some life into that passing offense. So I really think Mike Wallace also could be a good play in DraftKings.
All right. And my pick, I'm going to go with the Ravens. Mike Wallace is having a good year. Flacco looks great coming back from injury. Great they got 4 setbacks. So I'm going to go with the Ravens to go 3-0 this week and keep up with the Steelers. It's turned out to be another, once again, Ravens-Steelers.
I didn't know the Ravens were 3-0. I didn't know the Ravens were 2-0.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget about my UCF Knight on the Ravens. That's finally getting a chance to play on the field, Mr. Perriman. So watch out for him.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. So, Paul, take it away. There.
All right. Thanks. That's thank you everybody for watching. Everybody in the Facebook chat room, thanks for posting. We love hearing from you guys as we're doing the live show. So keep that up. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. That's Facebook /Shipe Sports Talk. You You can send us tweets at Shipe Sports Talk and send us emails at shipesportstalk@gmail.com. We do it every, what is this, Tuesday, I guess now, right?
Yep.
7 o'clock. We're going to be back next week.
Yes, we are.
All right, excellent. So hopefully we'll be in studio for that. We'll see what happens. But other than that, that's all I got. Thanks everybody for watching in the chat room. Did I say YouTube? Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe.
All right. Well, once again, Anthony, thank you for coming on for your little OT3 takeover, as you wanted to call it yesterday.
Thanks for having me. Good luck, Chris and Paul, to your Redskins this weekend, and to everyone in here that's a Nationals fan. Good luck in this home stretch.
Yep. So we didn't get to that, but I think when the postseason comes around, Anthony, I want to get you on. I think the Mets are going to be in it. Maybe we can talk some postseason baseball.
We're not going to talk about where the Mets are going to be. Right now, the Mets are in the wild card spot, not in the playoffs yet. I don't talk about this stuff before it happens.
All right. Well, when we get the final playoff done, we'll get you on. So, like I said, next Tuesday, check us out again. We'll always have our daily fantasy segments, and we'll probably break down the Redskins-Giants game. Also, check out me and Anthony on OT3 Podcast on Monday at 7 p.m. on YouTube and on Facebook Live. We'll be covering Clash of Champions and pregame Raw. So that's going to do it. So for myself, Chris, special guests Anthony and Paul, thank you for joining us, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.